Hi, Shannon Waller here, and welcome to the Team Success Podcast. Today we're going to talk about something that is really important with regard to teams and teamwork, but it can be something that's very easy to overlook, and that is appreciation. So we're going to talk about 5 ways to really show appreciation to your team. And we're also going to talk about how easy it is to miss certain people, but we'll get to that in just a little bit. So let's jump right into appreciation. What is it? Why is it important? And how to do it? Because I think those are really the most important topics here. So appreciation is really about showing your gratitude. It's about really recognizing other people's time and effort and creative abilities that they're putting in, that they're investing in your enterprise, in what is most important to you. So if you think about it, if you're an entrepreneur, a business owner, a team leader, even another team member, it makes sense to appreciate that people have choices about what they can be doing. And the quality of the work that they put in, their level of engagement is all something that they choose. And when they choose to use it on our behalf, it makes sense to be appreciative of that. So that's really what appreciation is. Now, why is it so important? Well, because, again, it's so easy to take things for granted. I tend to be a fairly task-focused person, as are some of you, and I can get very focused on, okay, is this done yet? How are we doing on this? What's the status? Where are we? And often in that drive for results, which I'm all about, people can feel a little bit like, is that all I'm good for here? And that's not the case. I appreciate who they are. I appreciate their contributions. So really balancing off the people with the task focus, I think, is really, really important. But sometimes we need to really consciously shift gears and make sure that we're not just so focused on the bottom line that we forget to recognize that it's people who are involved in creating this, not machines. Machines, last time I checked, didn't need appreciation. Who knows, with AI, that may change. But certainly, while they're still human beings creating the results, it's really, really important to share that. We work better when we know that people are appreciating us, that they're expressing gratitude. It also is a really great demonstration of what to do more of. You know, if I do work that someone goes, wow, that was amazing, thank you so much, I'm like, okay, that really creates value. I want to do more of that. So not that that's really the purpose of showing appreciation or gratitude, but it certainly is a fabulous byproduct because it actually, you give clues and cues to people about what you want them to do more of. I mean, that's a very powerful incentive for people. Fear is certainly an incentive, but so are rewards, and so is gratitude and appreciation. Now, let's get into some ways to show appreciation. And this will be short and sweet. None of these are super complicated. They're not hard. They just take some consciousness and some attention. First of all, one of the things that you really want to pay attention to with regard to showing appreciation is really know your audience. Know to whom you are expressing yourself. And for example, there are some people on your team who are much more reserved. They're not going to be out in front. They're not going to be the rah people. They're probably incredibly essential to the successful running of your, what we call backstage here at Strategic Coach. At the same time, though, they need appreciation. They want appreciation. But bringing them up in front of a room and having everyone applaud, not their most fun activity, not something that they want. What's much more meaningful for them instead would be a handwritten card that you have chosen for them with really specific appreciation about what they're doing for you that you really are grateful for. That will mean a lot. I know when I've taken the time to do that, and it's often hard to slow myself down, by the way, to do it, but when I do, I'll often see those cards on people's desks months, sometimes even years later. And that's how meaningful and significant it was. I remember my sister Julia talking about a note she got from Babs, who's the co-owner of Strategic Coach. And it's one that she got in her first couple of years here, and that was 18 years ago. So that's pretty meaningful. You know, people really keep those words, those heartfelt words. So if we can take the time to do that, that makes a ton of sense. Now, there are other people on your team who actually just love the recognition. It's not really just out of ego. It's just that who's important to them is your team, is your company. So bringing them up on stage and having everyone give them a round of applause is incredibly meaningful to them. They will feel totally supported, rejoiced, celebrated, and that's what will be most meaningful for them. And you've got some people who probably would enjoy both. But again, it's really, really important to make that distinction and to not bring someone up at the front of the room who really would much rather crawl underneath the table the moment you mention it, or to only give a handwritten card to someone who actually would really just appreciate a round of applause from the team. That would be much more significant for them. So really, again, the point here is not to assume that people want recognition the same way that you want it. We tend to put that onto other people, but instead really pay attention. Is this person more reserved? Would they be uncomfortable in front of others? Or is that in fact something that would make them feel really acknowledged and celebrated? Now, another really small and simple way to appreciate your team, again, this is in the general spirit of appreciation, is to simply say hello and use their name. Now, I really noticed that this is something that Dan Sullivan does, the other owner of Strategic Coach. He works in our cafe. He doesn't have an office per se. That's another conversation. But he is so great when someone walks into the cafe. It could be the receptionist and you say, hello, Megan. Or it could be the person who helps in operations and shipping. It's, hello, Martin or Trevor. Could be a team leader. Hello, Tammy. But he's always using people's names and acknowledging them. And it feels great to be seen. It feels great to be known. And that is a very simple and small way to appreciate and acknowledge your team. And if you have new people joining you quite often, you may have to work at this. I remember a couple times during the year, I'll go through our database and just double check our team, especially if someone's off site, so that I can get to know really who they are. I don't want to confuse people because sometimes people look similar. So it's just really critical that you find a way for yourself to look at people's pictures, put their names to that, and make sure you can address them confidently when you see them in the photocopy room or in your kitchen or wherever that is. Especially in a leadership role, this is a really important function that you can do. Now, another way to show appreciation, and by the way, you don't have to be the only one doing this, is have some way of acknowledging and celebrating accomplishments. And we do this at Coach, and you may have heard me mention it before, in the form of what we call monkey awards. We're a big fan of sock monkeys here. We have bubble awards, which is when someone creates something that's even bigger. And we have this bubbling pot analogy of growth. We want to celebrate people who have actually a big impact on what we do. So we nominate people. And those nominations, which happen from everyone in the company, simply through our email system, are really critical because people feel known, they feel acknowledged, they feel like they're contributing, they're knowing that what they're doing is working and other people are seeing it. That's another fabulous way of expressing appreciation. So if you don't have a system in place, I would put your team together to figure one out as quickly as possible. Or if it's something that you don't pay much attention to or you might have lost steam for, figure out how you can contribute, maybe how you can make it better, or have it be something that connects with you, because it is an important way to acknowledge all of the great work that your team is doing. Now, one really important aspect of praise, and this is the next point here, is to be specific. I'm someone who uses generalities. I just said important. I just said great. Like, oh, you're doing a great job. I have to tell you, that's pretty much meaningless feedback. It's better than negative feedback. I will say that. But it doesn't tell that person anything about what they did that they should do more of. It doesn't say what you actually appreciated about what it was. Instead, be really, really specific. It's like, oh, I love the way you handled that difficult situation with Mr. Jones. Before, he was really upset. Afterwards, he was actually really happy. I know he's going to be a client for a long time, and that's because of how you handled a really delicate situation. Thank you. That is specific feedback. Let someone know if they did a fabulous graphic for your new marketing piece. Let someone know if they fixed a problem with the code so that all of a sudden there were no more bugs and they fixed a breakdown. Whatever it is, be specific. That makes a big difference. And it kind of means that we can't be lazy as leaders or as even other good team members. We have to pay attention. We have to focus in on the details. For instance, I know my team that helps to produce these, I really appreciate when the little coughs are taken out, when my fabulous sound engineer, Willard, makes me sound really, really good. I really appreciate that. Thank you, Willard. So it's those sorts of things, people who help get me organized, people who help me do what I do best. I am incredibly appreciative, and it really is kind of a state of mind as much as anything else, but you have to put yourself there sometimes, especially if you're one of those task-focused people like me. So again, be really specific with your praise. Some other ways to demonstrate your appreciation of your team is really in fairly small ways, but that don't cost you much. For example, time off. Could be an hour, could be an afternoon, could be a day. Hey, you know what? You've been working really hard, really appreciate what you've done. I know you've got some things to focus on at home. Why don't you take the afternoon off? Great. Around here, we're a huge fan of gift certificates, and often you can get those points programs with your different credit cards. That's a great way to be able to share that. And also give people opportunities to connect outside of the office just for team building. Some of our most popular events have been bowling. Sometimes we'll get team t-shirts, which is really fun. Glow bowling is pretty fun. And it's totally casual, You find out who actually owns a bowling ball and has bowling shoes. That's pretty entertaining. One time we all pitched in when someone was injured, so the team won for that person. That was really great. And it's inexpensive. It's cheap. It can even happen after hours. It doesn't matter. But time to connect, again, acknowledges that people are people. They're not just automatons doing our work. They are actually people who really do have sensibilities and they have personalities. And it's fun to be able to connect and create community around those things. And also around charitable events, especially if that's part of your corporate values, really letting people express and give of themselves to something that's meaningful to them, as people who are less advantaged or organizations that are important to you. That's another great way to do it. So all of those things together are just powerful ways of letting people know that they're appreciated, they're acknowledged for their contribution, and that what they do really matters. So just to wrap up, I want to encourage you to express appreciation to people that you normally wouldn't. And in our conversation preparing for this podcast, the list of people that we came up with, it's easy to forget or to not acknowledge, maybe because you think they don't need it. For example, our team leaders. A lot of people focus a lot on how to show appreciation to the team, but sometimes the team leaders, because they're in a leadership role, don't expect it, don't need it, and they're running things on their own. So you may not even see what they do day to day. But that's a group that's easy to overlook. Another group of people that's really easy to overlook are those people that have been with you for a long time. You may feel like you run out of things to appreciate them for, but even their longevity, even their loyalty is something really to appreciate. So make sure you find something about them that's important. The last group I want to talk about are those people that really kind of keep things going. They maintain. They're the people, in our office who keep things running, who make sure that our technology works, that our kitchen's clean, that our workshop rooms are really well set up and really well maintained. I know that I really appreciate when people do that, especially if they're doing work that I personally would not want to do. The fact that people do it is really important. Remember reading a great story one time. It was a hospital setting, a book that I was reading, and they talked about the importance of the janitors. And just imagine if a janitor didn't do his or her job. Well, in a hospital, you've got things like blood and guts flying around, and how unsafe and unsanitary and unhealthy it would be if they were not meticulous about what they did. Now, for a lot of people would consider being a janitor a fairly unimportant role. In fact, it's exactly the opposite. And I think if you look around your space and you look at the people who do things maybe that you don't want to do, you can go, oh, well, that's not that important. Yes, it is. So really take note and appreciate those people who are doing those little things like keeping things running, keeping things clean, making sure your materials are assembled beautifully, making sure your standards are upheld, making sure that your space is great, making sure that people can do their jobs efficiently. They're often quiet, they're often unseen, but they're incredibly important to what all of us do. So that's part of the who of who to focus on with regard to appreciation. So I hope this conversation has inspired you. I hope you're feeling appreciated. By the way, I appreciate you. And that we just take a little bit of time to make sure that we are, again, not just focused on tasks, but also focused on letting people know how much we appreciate them, what their contribution is to our overall goal, and that we have some fun doing it. Thank you very much for listening. If you have any thoughts or comments, I'd love to hear them. Please let me know at questions@strategiccoach.com, and I'll talk to you next time on the next Team Success podcast. Hi, Shannon here, and thank you very much for listening. If you like what you heard today, please take a moment to rate the Team Success podcast on iTunes, and we'd love it if you'd share the podcast with anyone else who could benefit. If you're interested in learning more about the Strategic Coach program for entrepreneurs, visit us at strategiccoach.com or the Strategic Coach channel on YouTube. For free downloads and more team success strategies, visit teamsuccesshandbook.com.